All right. So we are going to start off with our moment of inspiration, and Mr. Picorni has agreed to handle that for us today. So, John, it's all yours. And you're on mute.
With everything that's been happening in the tragedy that's been happening in our country this past week, um, I was trying to think about what I can say that's inspiring that would help us feel better about what's going on. And it occurs to me that the best thing I could share with you guys is what Rotary has already shared with us. At Rotary, we have no tolerance for racism, promoting respect, celebrating diversity, demanding ethical leadership, and working tirelessly to advance peace are central tenets of our work. We have more work to do to create more just, open, and welcoming communities for all people. We know there are no easy fixes, and that challenging conversations and work lie before all of us. Rotary's strength has been in our ability and our commitment to bringing people together. We will tap into that strength now, and we will stand with those who are working for peace and justice. At Rotary, we will do our part to listen, learn, and take action to ensure that we continue to contribute to making positive change.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, John. I'm glad you did that because I saw you posted it to Facebook, and I was actually going to use it as a Rotary moment this morning, but
I stole it.
that is perfectly okay. It's a great message, so I appreciate it very much. So the next thing I have on the agenda is for Mary to introduce our visitors. So Mary, you're off the hook since we have no visitors this morning. And so then that means next up is Kelly is going to give us our weekly history lesson. So Kelly.
All right, so I looked up a few things and I was trying to tie them all together, but it just appears as if we're going to do just some odd points in history and not really be able to tie it all together. But so there was a small city called Zhongju, which was conquered by Genghis Khan in 1215. We call that small city now Beijing. Somebody near and dear to my heart, a man named John Core, a monk in Scotland, invented Scotch whiskey in 1495.
That's important stuff.
I stuck this next one in there because I actually really did not know it, and for some reason I think I thought they had been around longer. But does anyone know how old the Freemasons are?
Barely years.
300 years old.
How many?
They were started the first week of June in 1717.
Wow.
In our early country in the late 18th century, we, of course, added a few states, and in 1795 and then 1796, respectively, we added Kentucky and Tennessee this week. In 1868, now I'm sure others had been somewhat invented and done before, but the first patent for what we now call the typewriter was applied and accepted in 1868. Something else we all come to know and love, the Hershey milk chocolate bar was invented in 1906. A great time in our history was this week in 1919 when the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote, was put through. A couple of people, as I look around, I don't see Samba, so the rest of us probably will know who this is. One of them we all will, and one of them we may not. But in 1926, both Andy Griffith and Marilyn Monroe were born.
Oh,
Uh, Greatness in a bit of tragedy. This is the week with which Dunkirk took place in 1940.
mm,
This was also the week in 1964 that Kenya was established. A little news channel called CNN, but to kind of bring it all where what things are going on right now, this is the week of Tiananmen Square in 1989.
mm.
And that's it for me.
Those are good, Kelly. The older I get, the more impossible it is for me to believe how long ago things happened. Tiananmen Square doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but time does fly. So, for our Rotary moment, I would like to say, I said I was going to use what John used for our moment of inspiration, but I did want to just bring up the fact that I had sent an email out to all of the membership last week with regards to our club's decision to sponsor or not sponsor the new Rotary Club of Sochi, Russia. I have received several responses, but I haven't received enough yet to have a majority either way. And I do have votes in both directions. So if you would do me a favor, if you have not responded yet, please go look for that email and send me your response today or tomorrow so that we can make a decision. Then the other thing I want to point out is that later on in the announcements, I'll be talking about the fact that our board of directors meeting is scheduled for this coming Tuesday. And I wanted you to put on your thinking caps if you have anything that you would like the board to take up as a discussion point. I'll be asking for that input at the end of this morning's meeting. So those are the formalities out of the way. And so now we get to move on to our guest speaker. I asked Mark if he would be willing to do his biography for us today for a couple of reasons. One, I needed to fill a spot, but more importantly, since Mark is soon to become our president, I thought it would be really good for us to get a chance to really get to know him. So Mark, I'm really excited to hear what you have to tell us about yourself. And it better include the fact that you're really good about falling out of boats.
No, that was just a one-time thing, you know. Well, thanks, Tom. I'm, thinking about my path on becoming a Rotarian. My story I don't think is as interesting as a lot of the other members that have presented theirs, but I'm going to go ahead and bore you with my story anyway. So I was born in Dallas, in Baylor Hospital in downtown Dallas. And interesting enough, that's the same hospital my wife worked at for 30 plus years as a nurse. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it, but I spent my early years living in Dallas near White Rock Lake, that kind of area of Dallas. And when I was 6, my father died. And so my mother and I moved over on the other side of Dallas around Lover's Lane and Inwood Road. So my first job came along when I was about 14, and my mother owned a pet shop, believe it or not, in Carrollton. So early on, I started, I was enlisted to do everything from wrangling snakes to cleaning cages, running the cash register, building saltwater and freshwater aquariums. So that started my early love of pets, actually. And at one time I had like 3 parrots in my house, but eventually just down to 1 dog right now. But my mother and I moved from Dallas to Louisville in 1976. And we originally looked at buying a piece of land where Music City Mall is now. So I've always wondered if we actually had moved onto that property, how things would have worked out. But we didn't end up getting that piece of property. And my mother really wanted a horse. So we looked for something with a little bit of property to it. And we ended up moving into a mobile home on an acre of land near Garden Ridge and Corporate Drive here in Louisville. And at that time, Garden Ridge didn't exist, and there was really no housing developments that far west in Louisville. And I think there's only one traffic light in the entire city of Louisville at that time, and that was on Main Street.
Wow, you're old.
Yeah, just shows you how much Louisville's grown.
Yeah.
So I attended and graduated from Louisville High School in 1979. So go Fighting Farmers. And from there, I moved to Denton, and I attended University of North Texas. And I worked through high school and college at Tom Thumb in Louisville. And at the time, Tom Thumb was on Main Street, where the Big Lots store is. And since it closed and moved, further west up Main Street. But that's where I also met my wife, Nancy. She was a cashier there at Tom Thumb, and I was a grocery stocker. But we actually officially met at a Halloween party. We didn't really meet when we were working in the store. We met at a Halloween party. So we ended up hitting it off, and we were married in 1982. We ended up paying each other's way through college, and she graduated from Texas Women's University with a nursing degree, and I graduated from UNT with a bachelor's degree in business computer information systems. Unfortunately, that same year that I got married, my mother passed away from breast cancer. But out of college, I went to work at General Dynamics in Fort Worth as a computer programmer. And really, this is a kind of a great job to have just coming right out of college. I had a top secret clearance, but this is back when it was really easy to get a top secret clearance. All you had to do was really just fill out a piece of paper. But General Dynamics made the F-16, and so it's kind of exciting to see and work in the factory there where the planes were made, because the plant itself was a mile in length, and you'd had the individual parts on one end of the plant, and then on the other end, when the plane was finished, it kind of rolled out as a completed product on the opposite end of the plant. So in 1988, I had some friends that went to work for Frito-Lay in Dallas, and they called me up and said, "Hey, you need to come work out here." So I did. I went to work at Frito-Lay, and PepsiCo eventually bought Frito-Lay and became this huge global company over the years, with Quaker Oats and Pepsi and Frito-Lay and Tropicana and a lot more other companies underneath their umbrella. But I was also doing computer programming there when I first started work there. But over my career, I kind of evolved and did project management for different software development projects. I was a process improvement analyst, software and hardware asset manager, and a business analyst, working with various business teams in the organization. So it was great that it is a good job, and that I got to travel all over the world, and I got to see many different things you don't even think about as part of that type of business. But the only problem was it was kind of high stress. But in 1991, my wife and I were blessed, and we adopted our daughter, Tricia. And it's hard to believe that she's now 29 years old, and she works as an art director here in Irving. But up to the point in my life when I started working at PepsiCo, I'd not really been very involved in community service, and I almost felt like I didn't have the time. I wanted to focus on, my career and stuff. But I'm grateful that, PepsiCo as a company, it really embraced a culture of diversity and inclusion, and it did support a lot of community service work to a good degree. They had what they called employee resource groups, and they were these individual groups that helped bring awareness to different cultural and ethnic groups, as well as provided a way to get engaged with the community on different service projects. And so one group that we always worked with every year was United Way, and PepsiCo was a major donor each year to their fundraising campaigns. So I worked on several Habitat for Humanity build projects, and one of them was in Louisville, actually, out by your wine place, actually, Tom.
Oh, yes.
So there's a whole community out there that Habitat for Humanity built. And I was involved in an employee resource group that was trying to address concerns for disabled employees as well. And actually, I was even, believe it or not, Chester Cheetah for a couple of the events that we did. So I had to wear the big 7-foot Chester Cheetah suit.
Love
I
it.
actually have him as my. So that was fun though. It is hot in those suits though.
I bet.
So I worked at PepsiCo, for 30 years, and in 2018 I was caught up in a reorganization, and I thought this is a good time to try something different, and so I retired. So you may wonder, how did I get into Rotary then? Well, for all the years I lived in Louisville, even though I'd been in the community, I hadn't really been involved in the community that much. I did attend the Citizens Police Academy back in 2005. But when I was working at PepsiCo, I was going off and doing, some different volunteering in Dallas or Plano for any of my service projects. So one of the things I was looking for was a way to get more involved back in the community here in Louisville, now that I had more time. So one Saturday, I went to the household hazardous waste drop-off at the Louisville Service Center, and guess who I ran into?
Ray Bowen.
Smiling Ray Bowens, yeah. So Ray and I talked a few minutes while my car was being unloaded, and he gave me his card. And so I said, "Well, this group looks interesting." So I went home and I did a little research on the internet and saw what Rotary was about and what they did, and I thought this sounds great. So I went to a couple of meetings at the brew house, and from that point I was kind of hooked, and the rest is history in terms of being part of Rotary. So eventually I may go back and do some part-time work, but for now I'm just happy working on Rotary stuff and trying to get through all my house projects and work on some of my other passions, which are photography and cooking and traveling and fishing and hiking. So that's kind of my story, and I don't know if anybody had any questions or anything.
Yeah,
Do you like to cook?
Yes, I like to cook.
What?
Oh, I cook everything. I try to experiment with, the different foods, Chinese food, Mexican food, and I do a lot of barbecuing, in terms of smoking meats and things like that. So I do a little of everything on the cooking side.
Hey, Mark, question.
Yeah.
What was you wearing what was you and your wife wearing for Halloween when y'all met?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit at the beginning.
What was you wearing for Halloween when y'all met?
Oh, what was I wearing? I can't remember what I was wearing, but I remember what Nancy was wearing. Which is strange. She was a Lone Ranger and had the 6-shooters and the mask on and the whole thing. But I can't remember what I was wearing. I think I may have been remember the Blues Brothers and John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
That skit where they were the killer bees, where they dressed in bee outfits.
Yeah.
Well, I think I had a bee outfit.
Okay.
I had. You said you travel all over the world through your work. What was the most interesting location you got to?
I'd say Ireland. I mean, that's one of my favorites anyway. A lot of the places I went to Spain about 9 or 10 times, and I actually did some traveling around Spain when I was there. And from a culture and a food standpoint, I love Spain. But Ireland was just so interesting, mainly because a lot of my ancestors were from Ireland, and I think that had kind of a particular draw to me. But I went to Mexico many times, Mexico City and Monterrey, So it actually just got the travel bug in me altogether, actually. And so my wife had gone to more places in Europe and I think Turkey was one of the interesting places that I went to as well.
Wow. So, Mark, you know, I have a hard time picturing you in a high level of stress.
Yeah, I would agree, Mayor.
Honestly, I mean,
Well, one thing,
you look like the walking picture of calmness.
Mm.
You really do. And every time I've been around you, you've been like, I've never seen you stressed out about anything ever.
well, I can handle stress easily or fairly easy, but I internalize it. And when I actually retired from work, believe it or not, I lost like 17 pounds.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. That explains my problem right now. Wow. So you really like the IT world, and that was something that you really gravitated to?
Yeah, I think so. You know, in college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I just kind of went towards that field of study, and it turned out to be good for me. I mean, my skill set lends well to being in that area in terms of project management and some of the asset management work that I was doing. So I think that was good. And I couldn't think of anything else really that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, my hat's off to you and Terry and John. You guys work in technology. Bob, you guys that work in technology. I mean, that's like speaking another language to me. And so all I can do is look at this whole setup I have in my office and think to myself that it looks like a great paperweight. So hats off to you. I mean, seriously, I really don't want to be any more involved in it than I have to be. So when you have to call for IT support and somebody says, what's your VPN? I'm, like, English, please. What does that mean? Don't talk to me in words I don't understand. So, good for you. I retired early.
I started in semiconductor physics before I went to nuclear. And so semiconductor physics, everything that we use today, all of the computers and everything are based on semiconductors. And there are times knowing what has to happen for everything to work. I start looking at a phone and thinking there is no way that thing can work, because I actually my undergraduate work was in defects in semiconductor materials that made them not work. And the whole process is so precise that it's just, I really look at these things sometimes and say, there is just no way that this can all be working. I know what it has to do to work.
So, Bob, I feel the same way about jet airplanes. There's no way that thing can
Yeah.
Well, just to show you too how much technology has changed, I've saved this from college, but when I first went to college, this is how you created a computer program. It was by these punch cards.
Yep.
And so I saved this actual deck. This is one program here that did something very simple, and you see what it took to write that.
You don't have a marker stripe across it to make it easier to put.
No, it doesn't.
I always used a marker to put a stripe, a slanted stripe across the edge, so that if I did drop it, it would make it easier to put back in order.
If I ever dropped it, I'd be in big trouble.
Well, yeah, that was my greatest fear in getting my bachelor's was, we used to have to take those things up to the computer lab and run those. And inevitably you'd put some code in wrong and it would loop forever and you'd have to go back and figure out what you put in. And Or sometimes you just had the card in the wrong place.
Mark, I have a question for you though. So you lost your dad pretty young. Did I miss it? Do you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Wow, that must have been very challenging for you and your mom to be on your own at such a young age.
Yeah, and she never really remarried. She did have some, boyfriends that were actually, helpful to me just because they were good mentors. But
Yeah.
I was also in the Big Brother program, if you've heard of
Oh,
it.
wow.
And I thought that was a really great program. Although I was traumatized when my big brother left. He had to move and go to a new job.
Mhm.
And for some reason, my mother never got me another, big
Oh,
sponsor. So that was kind of traumatizing at the time because I'd grown so
yeah.
close to him. But yeah, it was rough on her, especially. But I didn't even realize it until later in life. You don't realize what your mother's really going through.
Yeah.
Now I have a lot more respect for what she went through and what she did.
Oh, wow, Mark. My hat is so off to you. That I can't imagine having lost my dad and trying to be a young man at that age with no real guidance other than, the influences that your mom was able to bring to you through the friends she had, through the organizations. I did that with my boys having divorced young. But I can't imagine looking back on that, how you really do. It's really so important for a young man to have the influence of a really strong man in their life. And so my hat's off to you. You did it on your own. Good for you.
Totally. There are lots of reasons why I'm looking forward to Mark taking over as president of the company, and I'm just going to call out a couple of them right now. Number one are his organizational skills. The experience he has as a project manager is, I think, is going to take us a long way forward. The other one, Mary, is just what you said about his sense of calm. You weren't on the call yet, I don't think, but he was so calm this morning. That I actually had to ask him to move to make sure that he wasn't dead.
Check for a pulse.
All right, so do we have any more questions for Mark? Okay, well, then, Mark, thank you so much for bearing your soul and telling us your story. I knew 90% of it, but I learned some new stuff about you today.
Wow.
So, the next thing I wanted to ask is if anybody was interested in doing their biography for next week's meeting. And if that is something that interests you, please shoot me a note and we will get you set up. So then moving on to announcements, I wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of what's going on with the bikes for the students at Central Elementary. And Mark, I know you've been doing the yeoman's work there. So do you want to give us an update on what's coming out?
Sure. On next week, Wednesday, June 10th, we'll have the bike awards with Central Elementary. We'll give away the 12 bikes that we have. And I think the principal, Ms. Devers, is planning she was going to communicate with the parents this week and try to get them into different appointment slots on picking up the bikes so that not everybody was all there at one time. So we'll have the award ceremony where they come and just pick up the bikes and we can cheer them on a little bit next Wednesday at 6 o'clock.
Perfect. So if anybody can be there, that would be fantastic. So I guess we'll get a confirmation from Miss Devers that everything is arranged, or are we just going forward one way or another?
Yeah, I think Charlene will probably reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlene sent me an email saying that everything's good to go for 6 o'clock on June 10th. That's why it's on the website.
Okay. Good
And
deal.
they did say they would pull the bikes out of the school and they're stored there as well.
Yeah. Okay. There are a couple of other announcements, but before I get to them, I just wanted to have a quick conversation about, I mentioned at the top of the meeting about the Board of Directors meeting on Tuesday. One of the primary topics that's going to be discussed then is pass the gavel. You know, we typically have a dinner out and all of that kind of stuff. And with the pandemic and the fact that we're meeting online, we really weren't sure whether we were going to be able to do anything about that or not. And so John and Mark and I happened to be on a call together yesterday afternoon, and we started to briefly discuss some potential things. But what it really boils down to is how comfortable all of us are going to be with the potential of getting together. And so if you have strong thoughts, one way or the other, about whether or not you'd be willing to attend an in-person, socially distanced event, please send them my way. The group will, group for the board of directors will be discussing this in great detail on Tuesday night. So, and as long as I'm talking about the board of directors meetings, did anybody come up with anything that they wanted us to bring to the board? I'll open that up for input now. No?
Is there anything going on about us getting back to CCA?
Well, we talked a little bit about that yesterday as well. Nothing definitive. But one of the things that we're thinking is that if we have some members who are comfortable with getting back together, then maybe we will do that and still host an online portion of the meeting so that those who aren't comfortable with it can still participate. We really have to think long and hard on that and make sure we've got all the right pieces in place. I shared that, you know, I do a lot of networking with my business, and I actually was invited to join an in-person networking meeting on Monday. I chose not to go because they said they were going to also have the online piece of the meeting available. So I attended that way, and it was not good. The experience was not favorable in my opinion. And so I don't want that to happen with us. And so more to come on that, Marilyn. We'll be talking about it on Tuesday. All right. So the other things that we have coming up here, you can see. Yes. John has posted here the fact that we've got the District 5790 Virtual Public Image Best Practices meeting is coming up. Gosh, is that today?
Yep.
At 7
p.m.
Yep. The Board of Directors meetings, the bike program, and then the Rotary International Convention that was supposed to be held in Honolulu, Hawaii, I assume is now being held online. So.
Yes, it's a virtual convention. It's a great opportunity. I mean, if any, you know, Marilyn and I have been into a convention. I know a couple of other of our members have been to conventions. It's a wonderful experience. They're hopeful of getting 45,000 people online for this thing. And of course, it runs from June 20th to June 26th. They get some great breakout sessions. So, you know, we can attend the Rotary International Convention virtually for free. I have to tell you, it would cost Marilyn and I a fortune to go to Chicago. Granted, Louisville Noon picked up a portion of that, but it's still between all, you know, all they picked up was the cost of the convention. They didn't pick up the cost of traveling there and staying overnight and all that. But
yeah.
it was a great convention. But anyways, it's a great opportunity for us to participate with 45,000 other Rotarians. So just follow the link. I mean, they don't have the registration set up yet, and they plan to do it next week. But I would encourage as many of our members as possible to participate.
Perfect. All right. So what have I missed? Is there anything else that we need to discuss? Okay. Well, in that case, let's see, who can I pick on today? Mary, unmute yourself.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to close us out by leading us in the four-way test.
Oh, you know what? I mean, it's only 8:45.
Yes.
Can anybody think of something to talk about? Don't we have any gossip to share? Can we create some?
We didn't have any happy thoughts.
We didn't have any happy thoughts.
Happy thoughts.
No, well, let's do it.
Okay.
Who's
guys,
happy?
I got a happy thought. Today, June the 4th, I was on an airplane getting discharged from the Marine Corps about 46 years ago. I feel so old. So my life as a military person changed to civilian. Now, thank God it was a good transition. Some of my friends that I'm in communication with had some pretty tough time, but they're all doing good now.
Fabulous. That's a really good happy thought, Ray. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else?
Kason has one.
Well, let's hear it.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I had the floor.
You got it.
My happy thought of the day is on Sunday, my wife and I got back from Oregon, spending 10 days up there with our son and his partner. Had a wonderful time. It was terrific to escape the craziness of the daily COVID crisis, and just go hang out in a different part of the country. We wrapped that up with, unfortunately, with a lot of turmoil at the end of last week and into this week, but we managed to stay away from that in Portland.
Yeah, that's good.
I got a happy thought.
Let's hear it.
Well, I don't know if you guys can see, I don't have a way to flip my camera that I can tell, but can y'all see that scenery right there?
Kelly, is that you?
No, that's Chuck from Fort Worth International. He snuck in on us.
Okay.
Yeah, can you see the scenery on my video or not?
I can see Kelly's backyard. That looks pretty great.
Well, this is not Kelly's backyard. This is the outskirts of Rome, Italy. And in the distance, you can see the Alban Hills. And the Alban Hills is where the Roman nobility had their summer houses, including the Pope in Castel Gandolfo. Now, the palace of the Pope in Castel Gandolfo was a repo. A noble family got behind in their payments. They repoed the palace, and then it became the Pope's summer palace. But this Pope is very humble, and he blew all that off. And he doesn't go at all. But it's a beautiful place. George W. Bush has been up there with John Paul II. And in the far distance, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a town of Frascati. Frascati, Italy, is one of those Alban hill towns. And if you go to your local Albertsons, you'll find a wine called Fontana Candida, or as it's pronounced in Texan, Fontana Candida. And it's a white wine, and it's grown right up there in the volcanic soils of Frascati. So next time you get that, I think you can get a liter of it for about $12.
Hey Chuck, you gotta hit the reverse button on your smartphone.
I know, but I don't
use your bathroom door.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't know
really?
what door it was.
How's that? How about that?
There we go.
Darn, I don't have this. WebEx is new to me. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm at
good.
an Airbnb.
That's pretty cool.
I see it now. Okay. Oh, wow. Kelly, that beats the heck out of your backyard. Sorry.
But, here you go with the power of virtual meetings.
Oh, wow. That's
And there is a website now that a club, I think in the Northwest, put up that allows Rotary clubs from around the world to post their links. So it's a big list. I don't know if John saw it or not. But yeah, I think it's a great thing for Rotary. And so there's a silver lining to, pandemics and world crises and stuff. And I think it's been said before that Rotary needed this shot in the arm to kind of modernize, because
Where is that list posted?
I'll send you the link.
It's
Let's
on the
see.
district website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our club is on there. Chuck, if you'd have gone to that list, you'd have found our link.
Okay. Well, I think, just as general practice, I remember before Amazon got huge, what was really good about their website is you kind of set something up and you just click one time, and next thing you know, you've already spent your money. They've made it so easy to buy something and I think that's kind of like where we need to go with our meetings. And if we get terrorized, just have the ripcord ready. The host needs to bail out quick. But, otherwise just let people in, without too many. I had a very encrypted password to get into this meeting. But John said I did not need a retina scan.
Yeah, I was in my first, I experienced my first Zoom. I experienced my first Zoom bomb yesterday during a Chamber of Commerce event.
Oh boy.
All of a sudden, somebody got in and started playing what sounded like a porn movie, I think.
Oh, no.
And luckily, Lisa Vanetta, who was the moderator, pulled the plug on the whole meeting after about a second and a half. So she was very quick on the draw, but of course, everybody had to then sign back into the meeting. That was very quick.
Well,
I do have one happy thought, and that is that the city of Louisville is starting to open up facilities. It's going to be a phased reopening this week. This week the employees are going back to work and getting ready for the public reopening next week. Everything will be, for at least a week, everything will be appointment only to get in. Encouraging masks, all employees are being temperature screened. And so we are starting the reopening process in the city.
Good.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
You were looking for a speaker for next week. I'm wondering if we couldn't invite somebody from the city to talk about, the reopening plan. I'm sure membership has questions about what's going to happen with household hazardous waste, if there's any talk about it, and of course, the different events that are coming up. Maybe Bob could help us arrange somebody, the city manager or somebody to come in and just give us a 20-minute presentation on the city's efforts.
I do have a presentation that I gave to the chamber ambassadors on Tuesday that goes through the entire reopening schedule. Nothing has been decided yet about household hazardous waste.
Well, that's all we need to know at this point. But that would be great to hear. I think. I mean, that's my own personal opinion. But
I do have a presentation that I could make available or go through. Takes about 10 minutes.
All right. Well, any other happy thoughts before we force Mary to do what she didn't want to do a few minutes ago?
I have a happy thought. I have one.
Okay.
So, in all of this, I still haven't gone in anywhere to like restaurants or anything. Not comfortable. But every place has a great patio, and there are some places that have fans on the covers of their patio, and I love these places. And actually, a lot of these patio places have done a very good job of setting the tables where people can be socially distant. You're just close to the people you're eating with. Saw John and Marilyn on the Rockfish patio, but Medea, not Medea, yeah, Medea's has a fabulous patio, and they have fans going. And why did that pop into my happy thoughts? because it makes me so happy to get out there. And with especially this whole week and going on and all the emotions we watch and feel, and to be able to get out with the people we care about, and I just think is a fabulous thing. And even though it's getting kind of hot, until I can't stand it anymore, I'm loving the patios.
There you go.
Yeah. And let me tell you something, Medea makes a really great lemon drop martini.
Well, actually, their margaritas are to die for. So yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I have a happy thought. So, okay, this part isn't so happy. In 2008, during the bubble, I just bought my business. I bought it in 2007. I was still acquiring business from other distributors in 2008. And after that happened, after the big bubble happened, I lost a third of my business overnight, just like that. So with the company and the franchise that I work with, I still have to pay that debt. So I lost $140,000 overnight and still had to pay the debt. So while it was a struggle, I mean, for years and years and years, it was a struggle for me to bring it back up. Facing this, really, I, battened down the hatches and broke out the rosary beads, which, ask Carolyn and John, I don't do very often. And I have to tell you, I went out and did all the proper things. I approached Safeguard on some different options. I applied for a small business loan, and all of those things. And then I decided to take my personality into this, and I just stuck my thumb in the eye of fear. And Dennis and I went out and bought a truck last week.
Whoa.
So, I got a stimulus check from the government, and we did exactly what we were supposed to do. We stimulated the economy and used it as a down payment, and I bought a brand new truck. Well, not brand new, it's 2015, but it is a great truck. It's going to be great for my business. It's great for our retirement plan, and I'm so thrilled with it.
Fabulous. That's super. I like it, Mary.
I have a happy thought.
Okay.
I am happy that my spouse is walking normally.
Oh, very good.
Shots that we had earlier last week, I guess.
The 26th of May.
Yeah. Are slowly taking effect. It's not 100%, but on a pain scale, she went from a high of 9 or 10 down to 3 or 4. So I'm glad to have a happy wife. Nothing like a happy wife to make you a happy life.
I like it. Well, I have a happy thought too, and it's going to be quick, but maybe you don't know. I have got a real important birthday coming up in July. And I, because I worked so long in the banking industry, I actually accumulated 3 pension plans over the course of my career. And I have signed up for distributions for all 3 of them starting on August 1st.
Woo! We're the money! Yay!
All right, and with that, Miss Mary, now I'm going to ask you to lead us in the 4-way test.
Okay. Please join me in the 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third,
Will it benefit
relationships? Fourth,
Will
will be beneficial to all concerned.
And fifth,
make it fun.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.